matter how many times you hear this engine, it's just such an appealing unit. Very deep, bellowing V8 sound, and it's quite unique in this day and age as well. There's not many V8s left on the market. This is the 2025 Nissan Patrol Warrior, and it's basically the most hardcore patrol Nissan has ever offered in Australia, and it's kind of Australian too. This has been developed and engineered by a company called Premcar, which is an Australian based company who have re-engineered this thing to give it better off-road performance, but also kind of more refined on-road performance as well. It's got new suspension, more clearances and so on, but the actual suspension tune has made it so it's a little bit more comfortable and a little bit less sort of sloppy, I guess is the best word, on the road. So it actually handles better than the standard TI and TIL models. Now I've done a few tests with these over the years, so today I'm going to do mainly the hill climb that we've been doing with most of the 4x4s and utes and so on. So we'll see how the big Patrol handles it. The main difference for the 2025 model is this new dash fascia with a proper widescreen touchscreen system. It does look like it runs Mitsubishi's interface or software. It's pretty basic in terms of what's out there, what else is out there, but it does the job, and it's definitely much better than the old system with the little screen in the middle surrounded by a spewing of buttons. This still has physical buttons, which is great to see, in my opinion anyway. Mainly for the climate control, which is separated down here. You've got air conditioning button, fan speed control, easy control of the temperature, and it's all integrated nicely and it looks like it's meant to be there. You've also got a wireless phone charger pad down here as well. The center console has been updated as well. It's similar to the previous model, except you won't see any of that 90s style wood grain trim around, but you do have the hand controller, so you can flick around with the within the interface without actually reaching up and touching the screen. Then you've got your drive mode cluster, which is pretty much carried over from the previous model. It's just kind of surrounded in different trim and whatnot. And then going with the Warrior, you've got this kind of very faint brown trim across the top of the dash, and then some suede or Alcantara trimmings as well with Warrior printed across there. These seats in the front are not the most supportive actually. They're very flat. I mean, this vehicle's only got 2,300 kilometers on the clock, so they might sink in a little bit and wear in, but you very much sit on top of the seat, and in fact you sit on top of the cabin basically. Like, I've got an excellent view around me, but it does feel like I'm kind of sitting too high, too tall. I'd like to be able to sink the seat down a little bit more. But yeah, there's not much in terms of lateral support, especially on the lower seat cushion bit. You slide around quite a lot. You've got more than enough passenger space though, including in the back. Look at all that leg room. It's a bit of a shame the second row doesn't slide back and forward, but I mean, there's already enough leg room for the middle row anyway, and you can actually recline the seat for added comfort. This is based on the entry TI model, so it doesn't get some of the luxuries that you get in the TIL, but overall it is definitely very accommodating and very comfortable for a full family. The third row is also quite comfortable for a 7-seater SUV or 8-seater SUV. Like, I can sit in there quite comfortably. The floor is still a little bit high. After all, this is a pretty hardcore off-roader, so a lot of the components and everything underneath do push the cabin upwards, but you've got definitely enough headroom for a decent journey and just stay quite comfortable. Even with the third row up, you've got a decent amount of boot space. I mean, this is a massive vehicle. It's very wide, very tall. It might not look like it has that much space left over, but when you actually start fiddling it with things, putting bags and whatnot in there, you'll think, hang on a minute, this is not filling up, because it's such a big space compared with any other or most other 7-seat, 8-seat SUVs. And then under the bonnet, as before, we've got a 5.6 litre naturally aspirated V8 petrol engine, 298 kilowatts and 560 newton meters of torque, matched to a 7-speed automatic transmission with full-time 4-wheel drive. and it goes really well. Even in this big heavy vehicle, 298 kilowatts, it gets up and goes all right. And it, as I said, it sounds really, really nice. Just show you the kind of kick down. Slow down a bit, about 50 kilometers an hour, full throttle. Such an awesome sound. You heard the side exit exhaust open up. It opens up usually at full throttle or at certain RPM. And you can just hear this extra bit of noise coming out the side. It's really cool. I haven't timed 0 to 100 with this one yet. I won't do the full test, but I might try to find somewhere where we can just get the V-Box going and just see what it can do. But I've timed the Y62 multiple tests before, and it averages around 7.5 seconds for 0 to 100. I mean, you can get a little bit lower if you're in cooler conditions or whatever. I haven't seen in the 6s, although I've overseas comments say you can get it in the 6s, but I haven't seen that. But even so, yeah, 7.3 seconds is definitely quick enough for this style of vehicle. Like, it feels sporty, it feels fast, has no trouble overtaking. Yeah, it goes really nicely. I'm going to miss this engine when they replace it with a twin turbo V6 in the Y63 Patrol next year for Australia. On dirt roads, I think the Patrol Warrior is more controlled and it's better over jolty potholes and corrugations and so on compared with the regular Patrol. But I don't think it's as comfortable, just in terms of sheer comfort. Like the regular TI and TIL is a little bit softer, so it's able to absorb the bumps more slowly. But if you're towing, or yeah, as I said, going a bit faster or hitting some more aggressive bumps and so on, then the Warrior is definitely more controlled and keeps the wheels firmly planted on the road or on the ground better than the standard setup. I've got a decent amount of grip as well, decent steering control even on dirt roads. Those tires probably help a little bit as well. Okay, the hill climb. Just before we go up, fuel economy, I'm averaging 16.1 litres per 100 kilometres, which is probably to be expected. It's not extremely high, but you know, it's fairly high if you compare it to a more conventional road going crossover or whatever 7-seat SUV. But if you compare it to its nearest rival, the Toyota Land Cruiser, you've got to factor in that this is much cheaper to buy in terms of the retail price compared with the equivalent Toyota Land Cruiser 300 series. You're saving around $20,000 to $30,000, $40,000 depending on what variant you go for. And you can use that money for fuel and you'll get around 3 or 4 years or more of driving. So if you just weigh that in or factor that in during your cost analysis, it's actually not too bad. You can get much lower than that. That's with a lot of city driving as well as some highway driving. I've achieved lower than that with regular highway use. So a few years ago I took one of these interstate on a big road trip and it was pretty good. Like, it was about 12 or 11 litres per 100 just cruising along the highway. And don't forget, when you fully load this thing up, because it's got a lot of power, you don't need to push it very hard, so it doesn't really make a huge difference if you've got the full family on board compared with just by yourself. Whereas some smaller SUVs and utes and so on, they're going to chew more the more you load them up. This is quite heavy. It's already pulling quite a bit anyway. To start with, as usual, I'll leave it in the standard default mode. We've got 4A, 4H and 4L with this little drive mode toggle, and then we've got sand, snow and rock. I'll leave it in on-road for the first attempt. We've also got a rear diff lock, traction control off, and then the hill descent control. So to start with, this is not what you should do if you're out off-roading. I'm just testing the vehicle, so I'm not looking to try, my ambition is not to get to the top of this hill. I don't care if I get to the top or not. I'm only testing the vehicle. So That's why I like to just start at the absolute baseline and then work my way up and just see how the vehicle is managing. Some vehicles have got up here in the absolute standard default mode, whereas some require low range or a differential to be locked. This is very steep. It might not look steep on camera, but it is very steep, and is kind of like little moguls and so on that really compress some of the suspension corners, but then unweights the others. So it really puts a lot of pressure on the drive system and the traction control system. But we'll see how we go. As I said, if you're attacking something like this yourself, just going for a family road trip or whatever, definitely lock it into low range straight away, because you'll slow down the wheels. You don't want the wheels spinning. But anyway, we'll just see how it copes in the absolute default mode. I haven't let the tire pressures down. I don't usually do that during testing. If I was out in my own car, then I probably would. But as I said, my aim is not to get to the top of this hill. It's just to see how the vehicle handles. And I find that when you let the tire pressures down, you kind of, well, you're getting assistance there. You're getting extra grip, which is good. That's if you're out doing it by yourself or whatever, out with a bunch of mates, and you're want to get somewhere, then absolutely let the tire pressures down. But I'm just testing, so I don't want any interference. Also, so I can compare to its nearest rivals, I don't let those pressures down either. So starting to spin a little bit as expected. Yeah, it's just spinning the wheels. We've got the front right spinning and the rear left spinning. So what I'll do is put it into 4H, and then we'll hit rock mode and see if that helps. Taking off in 4H is not a good idea, because the wheels want to spin much faster than if it was in low range. Might just go back a bit further. So I've got a little symbol down here on the dashboard saying rock. I'm still in high range. Actually, it's probably better just to switch it over to low range at this point. I can see that it's just spinning the wheels too fast. I want to really slow them down. So low range in rock mode. I haven't touched the stability control. I haven't touched the rear diff lock yet. Let's see how we go. Actually, it's not fully engaged low range yet. And now it is. You can hear the stability control relay flickering there, and we're straight up. That's really good, considering that was just low range, and in the rock mode without the rear diff locked, it's gone up no problem. Okay, back down, and we'll hit the hill descent control. You get a bit of a sense of how steep this is from the top. You can see the tree line there. I've got a proper view up here. That's how steep it is. I'd say it's maybe 10-20 meters from top to bottom. And you can see that there's big ruts and stuff that have started to form because of the rain, and probably because of me going up here and churning out the ground a little bit. So each time I go up here, it's getting more and more challenging. Like a lot of tracks, actually, they never stay the same. But I do like to use this hill as a bit of a benchmark, just to see how vehicles can do off-road. So that's feet off the pedals. It's grabbing the brakes and so on by itself. It's going a little bit faster than I would like, but it's maintaining complete control. It's constantly braking the individual wheels to maintain steering and stability. Okay, for the last attempt, we'll lock the rear differential. Just hit the button down there, it will flash for a minute. I haven't touched the stability control button, by the way. It's gone into its own mode. I think when I went into the, either when I hit the rock mode or when I flicked it into low range. But yeah, the main thing is I haven't touched it. It's done its own thing. It's still flashing. I'll just wait for that to fully engage. There we go. So if you were going to attack something like this out on an expedition or camping or whatever, you would just flick it over into low range and probably lock the diff straight away without actually testing it. It's just that I know this little hill quite well. I know how to get myself out of it if I do get stuck. Whereas if you're out exploring, you know, you might not have that luxury. But yep, that's gone straight up, no problem at all. Alright, we'll go down this little ditch over here and see what sort of flex we've got from the suspension. I guess that's one sort of downside to a big SUV like this. It's because it is so large, you've got limited lines you can take on, whereas if you're in a little Jimny or something like that, you can take on various lines, either whether it's getting through or just playing around in a playground like this. But down here I've pretty much got one line to go down because it is quite a wide vehicle. So it drops right down. You probably can't see it on camera, but just now that front wheel's sinking right down and the back wheel's in the air. But the side step hasn't scraped out, so that's good. It's got decent clearance. The side exhaust, side exit exhaust hasn't scraped either. That's very good. Okay, now we'll take on this right hand side now. This is more about suspension flex, because you've got two opposing wheels diagonally either compressed or unweighted in terms of the opposite wheels, and it just, yeah, really puts a lot of pressure on the suspension to see if the wheels will remain planted on the ground, as well as the traction control system. So I'll just leave it in the same mode that we've got at the moment. Actually, we'll turn off the rock mode. You can only put it back into on-road. I'll put it onto on-road and then just leave the diff locked. Actually, we'll unlock the diff and then, yeah, leave it at that. So it's 4L on-road mode, and the stability control has gone into its own setting. Just unlock that diff, let it roll a little bit. I suspect it's going to spin the wheel up a little bit, but there we go. So the light's gone off now. The rear diff is unlocked, so it will probably spin an individual wheel a little bit. Stability control, traction control is going nuts. It's actually walking up without much problem at all, actually. Yeah, look at that, straight up. That's without the diff locked. Okay, for the last attempt, we'll lock the rear diff again and put it into the rock mode. I mean, that did it very easily anyway. Just the stability control relay, or the traction control relay, I could hear it really flickering away. So I was constantly grabbing the wheels to stop them spinning, whereas now with the rear diff lock, it might not do it as much and just, yeah, drive up a bit more naturally. Just wait for that diff to fully engage. There we go. So I'm still in low range. Sorry about that sun, by the way. I hate filming in winter because the sun is always so low and it always seems to be right in my face or in the lens. Just easing it up, not using much throttle at all. I could give it more if I wanted to. It's not restricting my input, which is good. Some modern vehicles do restrict like how much throttle you can put in when you're relying on the stability control or traction control, whereas that still had plenty left in it. There we go. As expected, the Patrol Warrior has no problem getting up this hill climb at all, pretty much. I mean, apart from in the standard default mode, it spun the wheels a little bit, but yeah, you should be in low range anyway. And when you do flick it over there, it had no problem at all. Even with its size, it still managed to get up the narrower track on the right-hand side there with no problem. Would you go with the Warrior or the standard TI or TIL? Personally, I'd probably go with the standard models because I don't really want to pay for the expensive tyres. I mean, they're pretty expensive on the TI and TIL anyway. You do have more sound with the Warrior, and that suspension setup is better when touring on winding roads and so on, as well as off-road. It's more controlled. It's not quite as absolute comfortable, but I think especially if you're towing or carrying a full family with all their gear, then the Warrior is going to be better managed on all sorts of varying conditions. It's just more controlled, the suspension. The reason I might suggest the TI is because it is just such a cheap price. Like for this segment, it's quite an attractive deal. You're still getting pretty much everything in terms of the in-car accommodation, in-cabin accommodation, boot space and all of that. The off-road performance is still very good. I'm going to test the TI soon up this hill climb to see how it manages, but that's pretty serious in my opinion, those sorts of conditions, and this went up with no problem, and I suspect the regular TI will go up with no problem as well. So it's more about, are you going to take on hardcore off-roading? Then definitely the Warrior. Or do you like the more refined suspension setup? Then the Warrior. Do you like the more V8 sound? Then the Warrior. You know, there's so many pluses going with the Warrior, but it's just that extra saving. This is around $105 or just over $100,000, whereas the TI is about $90,000 or a little bit less. I suspect the prices will come down a little bit too as the Y62 or Y63 gets near. But anyway, great package. If you are going to do a lot of road tripping with your family or whatever, the Patrol is absolutely awesome. I'll leave you now with the last 0 to 100 test of the Warrior that I did, just to give you an example of what it goes and sounds like.